Well, family, friends and colleagues of the slain Cape Town Magistrate Romay van Rooyen will gather today to bid their final farewell. The 53-year-old's body was found in her Marina da Gama home 2 weeks ago. Police are mum on the circumstances on the exact cause of her death, but confirm that a murder investigation is underway. Van Rooyen was a sitting magistrate in the Cape West Coast at the time of her death. Our reporter Natalie Malgas is there and joins us live now. Well, Natalie, Magistrate Van Rooyen being remembered as a committed and a compassionate leader, pretty much some of the sentiments we're likely to hear for much of the morning as a family and friends bid their final farewell.
And those are a lot of the sentiments that we've been hearing all throughout the week as various tribute events are being held here in the Mitchells Plain community where she grew up, and also with among her colleagues in the Cape West Coast. As you mentioned, she was a sitting magistrate at the time of her death in Vredenburg. Her body was found in her Marina da Gama home by both her father and her sister. They were alerted to the fact that something was amiss when she failed to pick up her nephew at an appointment, and when they tried to make several calls to her, they couldn't get through to her, and that's what led them to arrive at her home at about 2 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. About 2 weeks ago, a little earlier in September, they then found her body. As you mentioned, the police haven't really divulged too many details about the circumstances of her death, but the Muizenberg police have handed over the docket and the investigation now to the Hawks. So this does suggest that this investigation is a high-profile one of top priority, and that senior members of the police have since been assigned this case. We are also expecting to hear not only from her loved ones and childhood friends and people who grew up with her here in this community of Mitchells Plain, but also members of the judiciary, other prosecutors who served with her, and perhaps other magistrates too who worked with her during her career. She was assigned the position of magistrate in Vredenburg only in October last year, but had worked in many courts, regional, district and the High Court here in the Western Cape. And what we've heard from some of the people who worked with her, who grew up with her, who knew her to whatever degree, she was a professional who had a passion for her job and passion for helping people. And we are certainly expecting to hear similar sentiments from the speakers, representatives of the Justice Department and the National Prosecuting Authority, who have so far been confirmed to speak on the program later today.
Now, we mentioned that the police's investigations are ongoing, although they do remain mum on the exact circumstances. Do we have any sort of idea if, there have been any timelines that have at least been released with regards to the investigation and how far along it is?
We heard from the family that at least by the end of this past week, they were expecting to hear the cause of death after all the necessary autopsy and necessary tests were conducted, and the body was reviewed and inspected by the pathologists. We as the media don't know yet what came of those reports, even if they were the initial and preliminary findings. Speaking to the police this week, they too haven't really wanted to divulge the leads that they're following or the evidence that they've so far collected, except to say that this is a priority case. We heard from the police minister when this incident was first reported. He described this as an attack on the state. He certainly thinks that this requires the necessary priority, and the most senior officers have been assigned the case, as we now know, because this is a sitting magistrate. We cannot yet rule out, we're hearing from authorities, that this attack was linked to her line of work. She did work in many courts, including that of Mitchells Plain, of Khayelitsha, and Simonstown. And she did handle very serious cases throughout her career as a prosecutor, as a state advocate, and later as a magistrate too. So they are investigating all angles to this incident, but just from the initial word from both the Justice and Police Minister that this certainly does deserve the necessary priority since it's considered an attack on the state.
Well, Natalie, of course, will continue to monitor developments out there as we look out, of course, for that funeral procession that's expected to get underway in a little under an hour.